It's time for the Jim and Terry Show.
You had me running.
You're getting your cup refilled. This is the Jim and Terry Show. Jim is momentarily indisposed. Oh, he's drinking some water. Good for you. Healthy choice.
I was choking up. Sometimes coffee chokes me. I don't know why. I have no idea.
To me, nothing is smoother or more mellow than a warm, on the hot side maybe, of cup of coffee.
Oh, hot coffee. I love hot coffee.
Especially freshly ground, fresh made.
Yeah,
I haven't got a grease pen yet, but I've been thinking of putting a grease pen so I won't forget when I put my coffee on. Sometimes I inadvertently leave the burners on. Don't do that. Then it becomes your less than desirable coffee. Very bitter.
Yeah, well, I don't know. How do you keep it hot?
Oh, well, I've got that little heating pad for my ceramic mug. Notice the flat bottom on that thing. It sits on that heating pad. It gets great contact with the surface, and it's a ceramic mug, so it conducts the heat. And that's how I keep my coffee warm. Can get, a good hour out of it if I sip it.
Oh, there you go.
There I go. All right, things that are in the news. Have you heard? Let's get on to some current events. And I'll start off with this one. I sent you a link to a fellow who reported in, I think it was to New York Magazine. So I'm not sure about the quality of the reporting. The guy is a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, so he's got some credentials behind him. But the allegation in that article, which has not been widely publicized from what I've seen, is that the U.S. took it to NordStream 2.
Yeah, and of course that's possible, especially when you hear the speeches and stuff of Biden, when he said if Putin did this, we're taking out that. He said that.
Yeah, he didn't say we're taking it out. He said it won't happen, or they won't be able to use it, or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it was vague enough that you could say, well, what did he mean by that? But if you wanted to interpret it as bombing the pipeline, you could see the words.
Yeah, and so is it possible? Absolutely possible. So, what can I tell you? It's absolutely possible that they did that. I mean, has any government done anything corrupt before? Oh, yeah. If you view that as corrupt, other people would say it was just, the price you pay for war, But a nuclear bomb is a price you'd pay for war, too, I guess.
I've done some digging since discovering that was published, I think, a week and a half ago, maybe. And I'm not sure that I got the guy's name, the journalist, but his credential was, he was a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. He was the one who covered the Iran-Contra under the Reagan years, hiding dark money for black ops to topple a government. But he dug into that. So that's kind of where he gets his pedigree from. What I've been reading, of course, you would expect to find this. So how true is it? You and I, with our coffee on a Thursday morning, are not going to know the truth behind it, but we can sort of scratch around, which is all I claim to do most of the time, is just scratch. So what did I scratch? That his reporting since the days of the 1980s has not been, it's been more and more towards isolated right-wing issues that you would expect. So who supports the war in Ukraine? The Democrats. Who does not? Usually the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and the radical fringe of the GOP. So is he giving voice to something that they are pushing awareness of? The U.S. did it to ourselves. They started the war. So is it true that the U.S. started? Because that's what Putin said in his speech this week.
Well, I would think not, but I understand in this world of shady dealings and workings, you just never know. Like, I mean, what's the best way to deplete the Russian army is have a war in another country where they're using up all their stuff. So you could go there if you wanted to. I personally don't think so, and I'll tell you why. And those who lean on the side of Russia, just listen to this brief from an average, everyday, uneducated man.
Our ones and twos.
Our ones and twos listen. You've got NATO. They're not following the United States itself. They're with the United States. You've got intelligent leaders through all of these countries who all view Russia as the aggressor, as the person that wants to bring back their original glory, which means taking over Estonia, all of those countries, folks. So you got NATO in support. The United States isn't acting alone. So quite frankly, if they blew up that pipeline, all NATO knew they did that as well. They're working in cooperation with one another. They have to, or NATO will not stand. So next time you think somehow this is just the wool pulled over someone's eyes, if it is, it's pulled over all of the members of NATO's eyes. So when I look at the evidence, just as an uneducated guy looking at it, I say to myself, no, Russia took advantage of the fact that the United States had a little bit off the wall president at the time who was going to fight the actual election, which would hinder the ability of the United States to react because it'll be in the middle of a civil war. There they made their move, and they didn't expect the United States to be in it as much as they were in it, because thank God the democracy stood up to the very person who betrayed his country. And that's how I feel. And those who were following him, you almost destroyed a nation because of whatever you're thinking in your little heads.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of secondary levels of exploration when we say, is it possible the U.S. did it versus is it probable? It is possible. I don't believe it is probable. And the reason for that is the amount of collusion we are finding about Trump, about his minions, his enablers, about finances, about laundering oligarch money. And we had the charge against a former FBI counterintelligence officer who recommended to James Comey that they open up and announce publicly that they were opening up the Clinton case 10 days out from the election in 2016. So now we find out after the fact that this was going on. So this guy has now been, now I don't know if it was while he was with the FBI, because he retired shortly after that, 2018, I think, but he was working with Oleg Deripaska, who is also the name associated with Paul Manafort, who was convicted by a court of his peers and found guilty, and Trump pardoned him. So,
well, if you were hearing what I said, and I mean it, Terry, I think Trump was in on the Putin attack of Ukraine. I think he was in on it as the president of the United States was going to give Putin the green light. And it all depended on him either winning, and when he didn't win, I think it's part of the plan. Putin, I will screw up this election so bad that we won't be in any shape to be leading NATO into anything, and it backfired. That's what I think happened.
A country that is not united will not stand.
That's right.
And so did you hear Marjorie Taylor Greene's speech about left or red states, blue states?
No, I didn't, but I can imagine.
Okay. Yeah, you can find it anywhere on the internet if you want.
What was she saying? Is she setting up for a
civil
war?
She says, I don't want a civil war. That's not what I'm saying. But, if we agree to have red states, blue states, if you decide to move to a red state, you wouldn't be able to vote for 5 years.
What kind of nonsense is that?
Jim, we're just Jim and Terry having a morning coffee.
Well, I mean, yeah, and it was like, what's his face giving the 44,000 hours of secret tapes to
Kevin McCarthy takes charge, becomes speaker, and right away gives it to who? I wouldn't mind if he gave it to all the networks. Give it to everybody. You want transparency?
No,
that's the word.
You don't want that though, Terry. Did you hear what they're saying? That this is security problems now. Now that
Yes.
now we know we can trust Fox. Come on. We know we can trust them. But
Uh,
right now, really, they could sell any of this or accidentally let anybody see it. You've got ways into that building now that were secret, no more. So, what's his face had his balls cut off, and that's what he's done. He sold his soul, it seems. That's going the extreme, but that's what it's like. In order to be the leader of the House, Speaker of the House, he's given
Kevin McCarthy.
absolutely Kevin McCarthy. You're going to go down in history as just, well, a bad word, you know,
Hmm.
a bad word.
Well, to use
All of them
your
are. All of them
to
are.
use your, I'm not sure if it's a castration metaphor, but who has Kevin McCarthy's balls at this point?
Well, everybody that he who bargained to vote him as the speaker.
After
So he
15
had to give
ballots.
away all of this stuff, and one of that was Taylor Green or
Right.
or somebody else said,
Yeah.
"I'll give you my vote, and I got 5 people with me.
Yep.
If you make sure that those tapes go to Fox, because Fox is going to do everything in its power to make it look like it was a picnic, not a riot. Give all those tapes to them."
All right.
And
Let's.
he said, "I'll do it."
I think you're right. So when the Speaker of the House is compromised, we have a problem.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's carry that on a little further and say something about the Fox lawsuit by Dominion, and that Carlson is named specifically.
Well, you heard the tapes that they all knew that that
Yes.
the election was legit. There was nothing false in that election. Nothing. They knew it. They kidded about it. Tucker Carlson wanted someone fired for saying, just for simply saying, this didn't really happen. Fire her. So that's where they're at. There's their mentality. They would literally sell out their nation. To me, they're the lowest form of citizen that
Mhm.
you can possibly get, and they're doing it for money. Whoa, that money thing again, Terry. They're doing it for money. Tucker even came out of his mouth. We're losing ground in the stock market. You
Yes.
fire her, and I'm serious. He said, fire her.
Yeah.
That's what he said. So he's using his power to go to your power thing. He's using his power to get what he wants. He's obviously a stockholder, or his salary is based on what the stocks do, something
Perhaps.
along those lines. They
Hmm.
would sell their nation out.
Hmm.
Anybody who listens to this organization now, I'm sorry, you need to really, really give your head a shake. But best listen to nothing than listen to people that would sell out their country in
Yes.
order for ratings.
Right.
And
Well,
that's where those people are at.
this is, you're preaching to the choir in your analysis, which I do agree with. I'm just wondering why it takes till now, when I've been saying this for nearly 6, 7 years now, that Fox is just a propaganda wing of the Republican Party. It is state sponsored. I know people say, oh, the CBC gets money from the government. Yes, it does. Legitimately, it gets money to be the voice of Canada, Radio Canada. We want that. But Fox, that's a private enterprise. That's awarding performance value, stock prices, investors, shareholders, stakeholders. And Rupert Murdoch is in it for the money, not for the politics.
Well, yeah, and all of them, like even those who hold stock, think about it. I mean, I'm a Christian. You can't serve God and money, I know, but think about it. I'm sitting here rooting that they tell the American people a lie so that I get more money out of the deal. I became a corrupt jerk. So all of those who have stock, who still haven't sold that stock, knowing what came out, knowing the truth, that it simply kept that lie going because it has a bunch of people that want to be told a lie. And you people who want to be told a lie, give your head a shake. Better to listen to nothing. Seriously, become a monk than want to be lied to because you can't take the truth.
Wow.
As we've said, I'm a moderate conservative. So, but I mean, I'm not an idiot. I heard Tucker say these things himself. He's not a nice man. He's not
And
a nice human being.
what you're hearing when you say, I've heard Tucker Carlson himself, I will project this because this is my point of view as well, is not a series of selected clips. It's the due diligence of years of listening and paying attention to language, what I call the dog whistle triggers. Because remember I asked you about triggers in Mexico? Was there a word you said that invited or sounded an alarm that people would go after you? And so I'm interested in language and the power of language. And these things that we now call dog whistles are usually, words like wokeism, Antifa. These things are triggers. LGBTQ, grooming. Those are all trigger words that express the rage on the right.
But
And
the left has it too. I mean, I see it. I watch CNN all the time. I know when they're following the line, that they have been told to go down. Again, we've got a yin and a yang, and I'm sorry, almost everybody that is making billions off things like this. They're making those billions, and they're going to keep it going.
now
It's
don't don't
like the
forget
war.
the this and that equivalency is not necessarily accurate in my opinion. Most, meaning somewhere between 70 and 80% of all media, whether that is print or radio or cable news or network, is owned by right-wing business people.
Yeah.
And that is alarming to me. So when you say it's the same as, no, it's not the same.
No, but here's what I mean, Terry. We know that CNN is owned by right-wing people.
Yes.
So you think these guys don't get on their yacht together, the owners of Fox and the owners of CNN, and say, here's how we keep this going? It's like what I told you earlier, when the best way to deplete Russia's arms is to have a war that you just keep supplying the loser, so the other guy just keeps using up his arms. Same idea in media. You sit down, you have a drink, you go, this is great, you just keep going your left wing, buddy, and I'll go the right wing, buddy, and we'll both get rich. And that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
I see
Okay.
in the
I
language.
do disagree with what I would call false equivalency, meaning they're not of equal value. They're not the same. They're not the same in quantity. They're not the same in the degree of quality. They are not the same. And that's my perspective. CNN, I think, has gone down a right-wing rabbit hole and has become, well, their guests lately have been so far right. It reminded me of the pre-election early years of Trump when they had to have a GOP spokesperson, whether it was a Kellyanne Conway or Kayleigh McEnany, whoever these people were. You could tell the difference between a guest speaker who spoke reason, which was, for me, the Democrat spokespeople, and the rabid nonsense of Kellyanne Conway or Kayleigh McEnany or Sean Spicer or Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
You see this because this is your leaning, Terry, and I totally understand it. So you're going to see it, and the more you look for it, the more you're going to see it. Now, I'm not saying it's not there. I'm not even going to say that for a minute. Other people aren't listening to any of that or seeing it, and it's just the way of the world. That's why I don't get too involved with it. I find life becoming depressing just with the yin and yang of everything.
Yeah. Okay. I see where you're coming from. I'm worried about both sides ism, where, again, they use the word equivalency, but put the adjective false equivalency, because they are not the same either quantitatively or qualitatively. So although I get the discussion, I'm still in the evidence-based world where you got to prove it to me. So to give you an example of current Pierre Poilievre-isms in Canada, he's going after CBC. Why? Because he attacks CBC for being biased. He won't give news conferences. He won't speak. Now he is more, so that's good for him. But the war against CBC is a right-wing dog whistle issue. I think the poll that I read was something like 60 to 70% of Canadians still support CBC. So I keep that in mind as I listen to the amount of rage against CBC from Trucker Convoy, the interviews. Oh, the CBC did not cover the convoy fairly. I am hard-pressed to find evidence for that lack of coverage.
Oh, it's always going to be there. I mean, this is what I've said 1,000 times over. Ever since the beginning of CBC, people say it's a propaganda machine for the government. The government has changed hands many, many times, and they haven't dismantled CBC. So, Poilievre, if he wins and becomes prime minister, he's not going to dismantle CBC. This is just another way
He says he will.
Yeah, well, that's good. Say all you want. Trudeau said he was going to dismantle the Senate, and he didn't do it. He's not going to do it. Everybody says what they want to do in order
generally,
to throw the wood on the fire on their people, what they want.
Yeah, generally that's true.
Well, so I don't know. We'll see if he wants to dismantle it, but
yep.
Well, let's see his argument for it. But and maybe it's time, but not politically reasons. Maybe it's time that CBC isn't even reaching anywhere near what the regular world could reach. But I hope that regular world's getting regular news and stuff, not just propaganda.
So how do you guarantee that if you don't have a national news network? I'm not sure. Anyway, we've expended our time for this one. This has gone on a little bit longer than I thought, but that just means that there's more to say. All right, we have another one coming up. Stay tuned. The Jim and Terry Show. Have you heard?
Bye.